Looking back at 2025, it's been rather a brutal year for the global car industry. While some reports suggest recovery, the reality for dealerships and consumers tell a different story. Uh, Welcome back. And this video is similar to one I've done before, but slightly different. I'll try and find the thumbnail and put it up there now. But we're breaking down the global new car sales slump, why consumers are buying cars less, or buying less cars, I should say, and how this is finally forcing car dealers, especially here in the UK, to finally shut the doors and go out of business. So let's get into this video and I'll try and, well, not try, I have sourced real numbers and sort of hard truths behind all the headlines that you can look up on the internet and on YouTube. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. So first, let's look globally. Vehicle sales aren't booming as some pundits claimed earlier this year. According to a January 2026 automotive data report, global passenger car sales in 2025 rose only by 1.9% to around 88.75 million units. A far cry from the strong growth, which it's barely above the COVID era peak levels. So there's a source for that. And as again, I source everything down in the description. So I'll put all links to the sources and where I got this information from. But that was the World Car Market Ranking 2025. That those figures came from. Some regions like China saw significant EV sales, which I'll go into a bit later in the video. Other major markets struggled, including Europe, where registrations fell by around 2.4% in the first half of 2025. So even here in the UK, overall new car registrations have shown a mixed performance through 2025, with some months down and some up, but private buyer demand remains weak and volatile. Let's look at the UK specifically. Official figures coming out from the DVLA and the SMMT data shows that in 2024 there was around 2.6 million new vehicle registrations, a 3% increase on 2023. However, the headline hides the deeper truth. The growth was driven mostly by fleet sales, not ordinary private buyers. It's business. And some months earlier in 2025, it actually saw declines in registrations. For example, in February 2025, new car registrations in the UK fell by 1% year on year, with petrol and diesel vehicles dropping sharply, even as EV registrations rose. More recent November 2025 figures show registrations down 1.6% compared to the year before, continuing signs of fragile demand. So the bottom line here is, yes, the headline figures sometimes show small year-on-year growth, but under the surface, the consumer is holding back from signing on the dotted line. And it's probably something to do with the cost of living increasing, inflation, and how much it charges to heat our homes. It's increased dramatically, so people are holding back because you don't really need that new car. One of the biggest structural changes in the market is the electric vehicle adoption. In the UK, EVs accounted for around 25 to 26% of new car sales in key months of 2025, up from just over 20% earlier in the year. This shift isn't bad in itself, but it kind of changes things for the dealers. EVs generally require smaller services, operations, and less maintenance than their petrol and diesel counterparts. So they kind of have to make up some ground where they've lost the, shall we say, the aftermarket in repairing the vehicles. So that means, for dealerships, it's a different business model they have to adapt to. So while we're on the subject of EVs, this is another key piece of global sales story that involves a company called BYD, and that's a Chinese electric vehicle maker that we've all heard of now, that have flooded the UK with their cars, and it has now become official that it's the largest EV seller, overtaking Tesla in 2025, with around 2.25 million battery EVs sold globally. But when you dig a little deeper into the broader context of Chinese EV industry growth, it's clear that government incentives and subsidies have played a major role in supporting rapid adoption and manufacturing expansion in China. Between 2016 and 2020, China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology audited its EV subsidy program and found that several manufacturers, that's including BYD, had claimed government subsidies for some vehicles that did not fully qualify for it, with about 143 million yuan worth of subsidies removed from BYD's tally. The source for this is Reuters and MIIT audit report. Now, that doesn't necessarily prove intentional fraud on part of these companies, but it does highlight, and the companies dispute those findings as well, but it does highlight how government policy has been deeply entwined with the EV boom. And it also underscores how quickly the market has grown to depend on those incentives, something that could be more challenging to manufacturers in China when the government scales back its reforms, and these programs in the coming years come to an end. In addition to that is the domestic EV market in China is showing signs of saturation and slowing growth. Recent reports shows that BYD experienced its first year-on-year revenue decline in 2025, alongside a sharp rise in inventory levels, suggesting that the demand may not be keeping up pace with production. So while BYD's headline-grabbing sales figures are real, analysts warn that a subsidy cliff with tax exemptions and incentive support is shrinking or ending. This could slow down the pace of growth and might force some manufacturers to rethink their strategies. So the source for that is EVXL analysis on subsidy changes. This dynamic shows how shifts in government support can directly influence sales performance, dealer inventory, and even inventory stockpiling behavior, an important factor to consider when we talk about the health of the global new car market. So the car dealerships, let's look at who's closing and how many that have closed. And unfortunately, there's multiple examples of major dealer networks shutting locations and restructuring operations. So we look at the first one, which is Virtue Motors. announced it will close at least 5 UK dealership locations following a review of financial viability. So if you don't know, Virtue Motors, I think they were formed in 2006, and it's like the holding company for a lot of dealerships, and they have multiple brands such as BMW, Mercedes, and Ford, and all different makes, all different dealerships, and they have something like 190 dealerships around the UK. So they're a big operation. So they've shut 5 of them anyway. So reports indicate that the US group, Group 1 Automotive, is planning further UK dealership closures and job cuts in 2026. So the sad thing about this, they have posted record revenues overall. And the source of that is coming from dealer press reports. So yes, the scaling back and making people redundant, but at the same time reporting record sales overall. So yeah, make of that what you will. Now we look at Ford, and historically Ford planned to cut its UK dealer footprint significantly in 2025, consolidating far fewer showrooms than it ever had before. That's sourced from industry analysis. We've also seen some long-standing dealerships like Lookers. Now, my previous life, I was a graphic designer, and I used to do the advertising for Lookers and work on the adverts, the press adverts. So I know all about Lookers, and they look like they're permanently going to close specific branches after decades in business. So some of these I might even know, part of a wider transformation in retail networks. So that's from historical industry data and closure news. So in some cases, closures have meant hundreds of job losses, like the Evans Howshaw closed 6 locations and cut 250 jobs in 2025. So yeah, it's always the little people that get hurt the most, isn't it? So why is this happening? Well, we're not buying them, are we? Weak consumer demand. Private buyers are holding off due to higher prices in, like I said before, cost of living. Some mortgage deals are coming to the end, so we've got to remortgage our homes at a higher interest rate, and higher utility bills. Is, like I've seen my water bill double, and gas and electric. It's ridiculous. We also look at fleet dominance. There's some more deliveries are going to business fleets, car hire companies rather than individuals. The EV transition economics, which means service revenue for EVs are lower than traditional cars, so that squeezes the dealers' profitability. So the dealers are shifting to an online sales where you can order and spec your cars online, so there's no need for a fancy showroom, and a lot of dealers are going down this route, following the Tesla route, where you don't really have a showroom, which I don't really like. I like going to the showroom, and a car is a tactile thing. You like to get the feel of it. You like to go on a test drive in one. And if it totally get rid of all the dealerships, which they can't, but they'll scale back, it makes it harder to go and experience the car that you want to buy. So overall, looking at Europe, new car sales actually declined in 2025 by around 2.1%. As buyers shifted behavior and competition intensifies from China. And in China itself, January 2026 saw car sales recently fall by nearly 20%, prompting government regulators to curb aggressive price wars in the auto sector. So this paints a pretty grim picture, really. I think it's a grim picture for all the economies all the way around the world. I think something big is about to happen. That's what I feel. I think we're in for a mass depression, but that's just my opinion. And hey, everyone has an opinion. But yeah, I do feel something big is looming, and trying to position yourself for that is yeah, difficult. So while headlines still talk about mild sales growth, the underlying reality is clear. Consumer demand is shifting, sales are weaker, and key markets such as like EV transition economics are squeezing profits, and dealers are consolidating and closing as a result and letting people go, which is bad news. So have you noticed in your area that dealerships are closing their doors? Let me know down in the comments. And if you've got this far in the video, sort of post the name of the dealership. Whether it's a Vauxhall or a BMW dealership, or let me know down in the comments what dealership is closed in your area. And as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me this far in the video. Please, give us a like, because it helps with the algorithm to get the video out there. So see you in the next video. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.